Hi, everyone. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Haneen Abu Zaghrit. I'm going to be conducting this webinar of processing big changes. So a little bit about me. My name is Haneen Abu Zaghrit. I am a graduating senior at the University of Kentucky. So I will be graduating in May, thankfully. And I'll be graduating with a bachelor's in social work. I am an MHA of Kentucky practicum student this semester. So I am Marcy's practicum student this semester, which I'm very thankful about. And I would say I'm the poster student of going through big changes throughout this school year. I was in my second semester of my junior year of college when COVID arrived in the US. My first practicum experience was cut short, and I had gone through most of my senior year of college virtually. So what are the big changes that I'm going to be talking about today? So everyone went through many changes once COVID-19 arrived in the US, students, everyone in the US really. All students had their life change almost automatically. COVID affected everyone by placing a hold on our lives. All events were postponed, which includes weddings, graduation, proms. Most were postponed or canceled. Schools were online for a full year. And even now, some schools in the US haven't actually gone back in person. We all believe we were going to go back to school after 2 weeks in March, but we actually are still not back into school completely, which that was a lie. We thought we were going to go back in April, which didn't happen. So I just wanted to ask, what are some big changes that you guys went through?
Feel free to unmute, folks, and tune in. I would say for me, it was helping other people adjust to working from home, since I always do. And then suddenly my husband was home and my son was home all at the same time while we're working.
Definitely. I can agree to that. Like, I have younger siblings who were in public school at the time, and we were fighting all over for the Wi-Fi because Zoom took over in our family, and everyone had their own office in the house. So that was a little bit of a difficult situation. So that was a pretty big change, and we're still going through that because my siblings decided not to go back in person. So we're still fighting over the Wi-Fi to this time. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go on. And what is going on now? So I think all of us quite know what's going on with COVID because, like I said, it did affect us completely. So it has been a full year and a month since schools first closed in the US because it did close last March. In January, vaccines became available for essential workers, which include like medical field workers, teachers, and some vulnerable residents in the US. So receiving the vaccine is open now, which anyone 16 and up can receive the vaccine in the state of Kentucky. Every state is different. Thankfully, I have both of my doses, which I'm really excited about. And hopefully we can definitely see a change in the rates very soon, and hopefully we'll go back to normal. I do think it'll take a little bit of time to rule out all the masks, but hopefully we will have less rates and less fatalities, and hopefully we will go back soon. So how do we process change after a year, especially since it was a change that we didn't really want and didn't expect? It kind of happened out of nowhere. So how did we process it? So it's been a full year of change and not being back to normal. Although it's been a year, it's still really hard to process the changes that we faced. And that's just because change is hard. Change isn't always bad, but everyone goes through a change at the same time. Once everyone goes through change at the same time, it just becomes pretty difficult. So what did we do to process change once COVID came to the US? And what can we do to process the change that's still happening after a year? So I would say like what we did automatically, which was pretty strong of the US to do us together, was we all went through Zoom school, which would college students and then all students in general all went through Zoom, which was really difficult, especially since a lot of us were learning Zoom. Not everyone had used Zoom previously, especially our elderly teachers who had to learn Zoom. But it was pretty awesome how we kind of got used to it, and now it's a little bit difficult to go back to school because you don't really know how to go through school anymore because it's been a while. But I would say that change was something that we had to learn like automatically. It wasn't something that we had time to think about. Okay, I'll go ahead and go on. So So there are 7 tips that can help us process change. And I would say the first one is to focus on what you can control. The second one is write out your feelings on paper. The third one is keep up your self-care where you can. And find support is the fourth one. The fifth one is tune into the good. The sixth is make plans, and the seventh is think of your strength. And once I say those do sound pretty easy, but once you get into it, it does get kind of hard, especially when you're going through change. Like I said before, change isn't always the best, and sometimes change could be good. So it can be really hard to process the changes, and these tips will help you go through them, even though you thought you were. Sometimes you don't realize that it wasn't as strong as you can be. But the first one, focus on what you can control. So the changes we faced over the past year were extremely out of our control. Many things happened over the year that we wish never happened, but we had to come to terms with not being able to control the change. Feeling helpless during the time is very common. And while going through such a big change, there is nothing we can do other than accept the change that we are experiencing and focus on what we can control within it. So this tip will include controlling how you react to the situations, controlling your daily schedule, controlling on how nice you are to yourself and others. Especially during this time, we don't have control in anything. We don't have control of the laws and regulations, and we don't have control of how COVID is like going through and who's losing their lives. We can't really control that because we're trying to protect ourselves from it and we're trying to protect our loved ones, but sometimes it just doesn't work out the way we want it to. So just learning how to understand that control is out of our hands, but we just have to go through with it. You know, it's difficult to say that and difficult to actually go through that, but learning how to just how you react and how you feel about learning how to react is just important, really. And then the second tip is to write your feelings out on a paper. And I wrote quite a lot about this one because this one is actually something that I realized I enjoyed this actual semester. I never thought that writing out my feelings would actually make me feel a little bit better about myself, which I think is really common. That's actually a part of self-care, which we'll be talking about later on. But last spring, we were in basically a full lockdown, kind of complete quarantine. We should be in quarantine still till this day, but back then it was a little bit stricter. So most jobs were transferred into virtually. Schools were completely virtually. All weddings, prom, graduation concerts were canceled or postponed. So we lost a lot of in-person contact, which is we need that quite often. So we were only seeing our households, and not every time are we really close to our households. So we don't really get to have that conversations or get to vent to our family members that we need, like we need to with our therapist or our friends. So with COVID, not being able to see our friends in person as often, we don't get to release our tension or release all our feelings from our brain. We have to tell people what we're thinking most of the time. So that's why I like this tip, because writing out your feelings actually can help you release so much tension from holding it in and from just releasing your brain. Really, it feels like a relief. So if you ever need somebody to talk to and you can't seek a friend to vent to, always writing it down can maybe help. It helps me. Doesn't help, might not help everyone, but it does help me feel a little bit less overwhelmed. I don't have a journal. I just start typing and it helps me. I delete them most of the time, but I'm going to try to start doing a journal, and that might help me even release a little bit more of my overwhelmed feelings. So the third third tip is actually really popular, I would say, in the social work field, because we talk about this a lot in our classes. And this one is keep up your self-care where you can. And I like to state this before anything is not every self-care plan works for everyone. So if I like to listen to music, somebody else might not like to listen to music for their self-care, or somebody might like to take a bath and the other person might not. So every self-care is different. So we don't have specific, you choose what you would want for your self-care. That's something that makes you feel a little bit better for yourself and makes you just feel a little bit more comfortable. Especially during this time, we are feeling a little bit overwhelmed and times are tough. So it is easier just to stay in your bed or to watch a movie on your couch. But avoiding whatever is making you feel overwhelmed can just create so much tension, and you really need to focus on your mental health. So self-care is really important because it can be just as simple as going for a walk, and it will help you a little bit. That will help you improve your mental health, and it will help you feel less overwhelmed. So my self-care includes listening to music. I like to read. I prefer reading books with happy endings because that makes me feel a little bit better about life a little bit with mental health. And then I like to, like I said, I like to write. So drinking water isn't my self-care, but some people might love that. And that's just something, every self-care is different. Does anyone have an example of what their self-care plan might be?
When the pandemic started, I began to take walks with my neighbor and her little dog, and really look forward to those walks. The hotter it got, the earlier we left to walk, and it was really for me very cathartic because I found myself paying attention and appreciating things I wouldn't normally have known, and being inspired by someone's garden in my neighborhood, or just watching this little dog get so excited with leaves blowing in it. It really did help, and it gave me an opportunity to get to know my neighbor better, and to build that relationship. And so it's really easy for me to kind of get out of routines like that. But the pandemic, I think, has really proven to me that I need to make sure that I'm carving out that time and not feeling guilty about it. And P.S., I adore you, Haneen.
Thank you, Ms. Brenda. That, go ahead.
I was just going to say on my end, I walking was a big thing, and it still is a big thing for me and my wife. Also, reading is a very big thing that I like to do. It's a time to kind of escape into the world that you're reading about, and it's to me, it's just very calming. Actually, I do dishes at home after our meals. That's kind of therapeutic for me as well, to kind of relax as I'm doing the dishes. And it's a time that a lot of times I'm doing it by myself. Sometimes there's music being played because I as well love music. So I have my Dot playing music in the background as I'm doing the dishes a lot of times. So I really enjoy that. But a couple of things that I did during the pandemic was accomplish some goals that I had that I probably wouldn't have been able to have done if I was on a regular schedule. Becoming a mental health coach, as well as becoming a master trainer in QPR was a big step too. So I was able to accomplish some goals during that time because things were so slowed down.
Yes, thank you. I would actually say during the first quarantine, there was a lot of people that were accomplishing their goals because they did finally have the time, which I truly admire. I wasn't able to. I had a whole list of things, and then I just ended up forgetting about them. Just as everyone wanted to update their house, most people are still working on that, and I just think that was awesome that everyone got to do the things that they weren't able to do on a normal day. But with quarantine, they were able to do their dreams, to fix their house or to complete their goals, which, like I said, I admire that. And I actually noticed most of my family's self-care plans as well throughout this quarantine. I do have a pretty large family, and we all were closed up in one house for months at a time. So it was we got to understand each other a little better. So I noticed my mom really liked to go for a walk, and my dad, and they started to go for walks more often. And she's been doing home improvements as well. So I just noticed that you can tell who's what kind of thing helps them feel a little bit less overwhelmed. And thank you guys for sharing again. So the fourth tip would be find support. So with the types of change we faced throughout the past year, somebody else may have felt the same way that you're feeling too. So you're always never alone. And depending on what you're going through, you may be able to talk to your friends, your family members, an online support group, and or a mental health professional. So that could be a therapist, a social worker, a mental health peer. So whoever it may be, and that you feel comfortable talking to, having somebody listening and supporting you can help you through any transition you're working through. I can tell quite a few people have been going to therapy a little bit more often from just experiences that I've been seeing during COVID, just because of how hard the changes have been. A lot of people just have realized therapy may be the best thing for them, and being virtually also helps a lot of people because if they don't have the resources to go to an office, being able to just call them and talk to a professional over the phone actually assists them quite a lot. So the fifth one is tune into the good. And this one can mean quite a lot of things. So it can mean no matter what kind of change came into your life, there's most likely some grief that coincides with it, with processing it. So this could mean if you got a new job through COVID and you're just grieving because you missed the day-to-day interactions with your previous coworkers at the old job. That happens a lot. If you were really close to the coworkers, maybe you had a hard time leaving that job. Maybe you had a hard time not seeing them every single day, and going to the new job, you might hold so much negativity and fear of not being able to fit in, or all the changes that are going to bring with that new job. So with this tip, it basically is saying to try and retrain your brain to think of positives in your life by doing practicing gratitude and like focusing on the small things that bring you joy. So this one could mean maybe making new friends at your new job, or doing something for the old coworkers and to tell them that you miss them, or even maybe taking your mind off of the coworkers, or taking your mind off of what your fear was, and do something that makes you feel a little bit better about yourself. And this could be a self-care, or this could be volunteering, or just feeding the homeless, or doing something that just makes you feel a little bit better about yourself. And I like this tip because it is pretty open, really. It could be you do one thing for yourself, or you can do another thing for 100 people, and you'll still feel a little bit better about yourself, because self-care is not selfish, and doing something that makes you feel good is not selfish as well. Okay, so the last one, or the sixth one, is make plans. And while going through change, there is no one, we went through change that no one ever expected or even wanted. So it may be helpful to plan other things. We didn't have control on Corona or the COVID-19, exactly like the first tip. So with making plans, this actually can help you stick to like a schedule, or just something that you planned to make you feel a little bit better about yourself. Just be an organized planner. Not getting mad about planning is really important, because if something bad happened or something ruined your plans, just have to like let go, maybe would also help you as well. Not being so overly organized is also important, because you don't want to be so disappointed if something does go wrong in your planning period. But this could mean just planning your day, planning your week, or just planning anything that will help you get rid of the uncertainty that comes with change. Like I said, we didn't plan anything last March. We didn't know what was happening. We did think we were going to go back to school, which we didn't. So I would say this would help at least put some schedule into your life and make you feel a little bit better about controlling something in your life.
And it gives you things to look forward to, right? As
Yes,
well. So
it does, yes. And I said this actually can be seen as a self-care act for some people, because this is also one of my self-care acts. I am a planner. I like to plan anything. So if I have an idea of going on a vacation in a year, I will start planning it. So I'll be like, what's the hotels I could do, or what are some good trips for me? And I know that I'm probably not going to go on that vacation, but I still plan it out just in case maybe I will go within that year. But I'm a planner. Sometimes I do let it get to me if it doesn't go well, but my mom always tells me not everything goes what you planned, and we just have to brush it off, because you don't know what's going to happen to you that day or that week. So just planning simply, not organized planning, is really good too. So the last one is quite the biggest one, I would say. This one is think of your strengths. So it's really important that everyone tries the tips, and this one will help you complete all of them. This one is to think of your own strength, because going through change can show your weaknesses, which is nothing's wrong with having a weakness. Everyone has a weakness, but going through change displayed the hardships we went through life. It made us rethink our lives. It made us go through what we didn't want to go through, and we lost a lot of people, we grieved. So going through weakness, it's important to remember that no one is perfect and everyone else has a weakness as well. So behind the weakness is the strength you carry. And we always have to remember that even though we're weak in some parts in our life, we're always really strong. And we also remind yourself that you are strong and you're capable and can make it through whatever challenges you're facing. And look at this, it's been a year and a month since COVID happened in the US, and we are still here and we're still very strong, and we should all be proud of how we went through all our hardships throughout the few months. And this past year just has been really difficult for everyone. Like I said, we all went through grieving, we all went through hardships. So we just have to remind ourselves that we are strong. And I added the hotlines on the last slide because of if you ever need them. This is the suicide prevention hotlines and the non-emergency warm lines. And I'm open to questions if anyone has anything.
Larry just commented, you have survived 100% of your worst times. I like that. So folks in the chat, I have dropped the Tools to Thrive sheet called Processing Big Changes that Haneen pulled some of this information from. And she personalized it also. It's not exactly what we said, but it was the same idea. So feel free to download that or any other material from our Tools to Thrive. And all of the Tools to Thrive are part of our Mental Health Month events. And we try to get all kinds of great information out there for everyone. The Tools to Thrive are good for every single day, not just during COVID, but they're definitely helpful during COVID.
You know, this has been so wonderful, Haneen and Marcy. Hi, it's Brenda, and I really want to give a shout out to all of the amazing students in Kentucky with Haneen, because I think there's a lot of times that we think, oh my gosh, my 3 semesters now have been altered, dramatically impacted and affected by COVID. Will I be prepared when I graduate with this degree, whatever that degree may be? And absolutely 100% yes, because the resilience that everyone has shown through this pandemic, the ability to navigate constant change mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, psychically. I mean, all of that has been so impacted. And I think that your presentation, Haneen, does a beautiful job of really pulling it together in really nice, concise ways that we all can continue to reflect. So when we do graduate or continue into the next semester, we can take a look back and go, yeah, I kicked it. You know, I did a really good job, and here I am. And it really has, like you said, Haneen, made us stronger in ways we never imagined. So thank you so much, Haneen and Marcy. This has been really just very, very encouraging. And I can't wait to share it all over Facebook.
Thank you. Yes, I definitely believe in all the students as well, like as I do in myself, because we did go through such change that we did not expect it. Like I said multiple times, we did think we were going to go back within 2 weeks. And that first day we were all like, yay, 2 weeks off, that we don't have to like go park and go on the bus to school, or not having to wake up so early. Maybe we can just sleep in a little bit. But then it hit no graduation and no prom. And that's when we realized, oh, wow, our lives are changing. And are we going to ever go back? And that was honestly a big fear of mine, is I didn't think we were going to go back to normal, because the rates were just getting ridiculous and everyone was losing their family members. I personally lost some family members. So I was just like, I don't know if we're ever going to go back. Are we going to be okay? And then once the vaccines came out, I had some hope. And then I looked at this toolkit and I made myself realize that we are strong, because we went through change that we had no control of. It's a change that we didn't want. It was a change that we hope never happened, and we still hope would never didn't happen. And it's just something that we have to realize that that's a plan that didn't get to happen. Like there was so many things that I had planned for the summer that didn't happen. Thankfully, we're having graduation and people are having proms and weddings are coming back. But hopefully we'll be back to normal, where we don't have to worry about postponing because somebody passed away, or postponing because the bride or the groom has COVID. So we're just really I'm hoping that we'll go back to normal. And I'm thankful that this toolkit actually helped me realize that no matter what, we are strong, because what we went through is pretty difficult.
Oh, definitely created some resilience.
Yeah.
I really appreciate MHA putting out the toolkit. I've already placed it on my Facebook pages with the Kentucky Suicide Prevention, as well as Suicide Prevention Kentucky and the consortium, so that they have those resources as well. But Haneen, I just really appreciate you being so honest and open and just feeling a positive vibe from your talking. I think it's very encouraging. My daughter, my oldest daughter, is finishing up her freshman year at UK. And so it's been a challenge going, being a 2020 graduate in high school to being her first year going through all of this at UK. And I think she's had a lot of blessings in the way that things have played out and the closeness that she's had with some of her friends. So I really appreciate the way that you did this presentation and brought out these tips. I think it's something that we all need to remind ourselves. And sometimes we get so bogged down on things we can't control that we fail to look at things that we can control and do something about. So I really appreciate how you presented those tips. And I know that one page gives us a little summary, but you did a great job hitting on each one of those and sharing your own experience. And I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. I truly appreciate you saying that. And congratulations to your daughter for graduating last year. And being a freshman, I would say, is pretty difficult in the first year of COVID. And just being a freshman is, in general, going into from public school to college where you're on your own is very difficult. So she's really, really strong for being able to finish this year. And something that I was going to add and I forgot to add was with college students going through so much and so much change. UK has opened up so many advising appointments, and there's free counseling, which they've always had, but they have been doing more self-care acts and self-care activities, which I really truly appreciate UK for doing that. They'll do stuff after school or during the day, movie nights and like build your own stuff plush, just because they really do care a lot about their, I would say, their students' mental health. And I truly appreciate UK for actually caring, really.
I'm looking forward to hearing Dr. Cyril and the panel next week on what Marcy was talking about that's coming up next week. So to me, there is so much out there, so many opportunities to get plugged in. And so you don't have to be isolated or feel like isolated. And I think that's one of the hardest things during this pandemic is that so many people felt alone in ways that we never experienced before. And so what you all are doing there with MHA and the amazing studies and research, I'm going actually taking these tips here and probably implementing them with a 50 and older group that I'm doing on Friday with a virtual group on some tips to help with the mental health. And as we're trying to get more and more out of that tunnel and more to the light of on the other side of the pandemic. So I think there's some great tips to include in the presentation. So I greatly appreciate that part too.
Thanks.
Definitely.
Larry.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I know I focused this presentation on youth and students, but I would also definitely say a lot of these tips will help a lot of elderly. I know how hard it was for my grandma. She was hidden in her home for many months because we really, really did not want to give her COVID or anything where she would get sick during this time. So I know a lot of elderly people are still isolated to this day. She thankfully has a vaccine, but it's still pretty scary to be around your elderly family members. So I think a lot of these tips as well will help them go through these challenges too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we all go through big changes, not just the big one we all went through, right? Is easy to reference, but
yeah,
like you mentioned in the beginning, job change happens, right? And sometimes that's not in your control and things like that. So That was huge. Thank you so much, Haneen. If anybody else wants to talk, feel free. We're here for a little while longer. So this has been a presentation of Mental Health America of Kentucky. You can find out more about us at mhaky.org. You can reach us. I'll put my email in the chat is mtimmerman@mhaky.org. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions or need copies of anything. Feel free to let me know. Our May is Mental Health Month events have already started. So we started a little early because I do have several practicum students. I wanted to give them opportunities to present on these very important things, especially this processing big changes as we look at graduations happening and proms are happening and slowly reopening is happening. So all those things that are happening to all of us, we felt like we didn't want to wait to cover this topic. I think that was important. But we do have, I think, 7 events next week. So feel free to get engaged where you can. Don't exhaust yourself, right? Hopefully our events are self-care for all of you. But thank you for coming.
Thank you all so much. I really appreciate y'all taking time and sharing with us. And I look forward to hearing all the things next week too, on what I can join in. And I did register for the May the 4th event. So
thanks,
hopefully
Larry.
everything works out okay. Good.
I'm so glad you're.
It sounds like a great opportunity.
I'm sure we're going to
have.
You feel free to interrupt when you need to during that one. Thank you, and thanks, James.